Today, welcome to Behind the Gavel with Jason. We're going to talk about art fakes and frauds today on our show. Sorry about that. I got distracted with research. We're going to be talking about art fraud and how it's somewhat prevalent in the art world and what you can do to protect yourself and what to look for when you're considering purchasing pieces at auction here and there. We're going to try and share this on my page real quick while I'm talking to you. But so even in just art fraud has been around for centuries. It really has been. It's really come to light in the 20th century when prices have escalated to such enormous numbers that it has become financially significant and feasible and interesting to fraudsters to perpetrate the crime. Oh, good morning, Mercedes. How are you doing today? Thanks for watching. We're talking about art fraud today and what you can do to notice it and protect yourselves when you're looking at buying art. This kind of came up again here recently. Just in the last week, there have been a couple of stories written about it, a couple of high-profile cases. About 3 weeks ago, where'd that go? A mother and son team were ordered to pay $465,000 to a longtime noted collector and dealer, Andrew Hall. They had a connection to Leon Golub, who was an American artist and was artists. And this mother and son decided to create these fakes of Leon Golub's work and offer them. And they fooled this dealer and others into believing they were true. And that dealer paid $465,000 for these pieces over time. And the courts found them to be guilty of fraud and demanded that they pay restitution of $465,000. Just a couple of days ago in New York City, Ezra Shawiki, as a New York dealer, had a gallery from 2004 to 2017 over the last several years, had run $10 million worth of art-related scams in the marketplace. And these are different than fraud. He was doing things, he was selling shares or selling pieces of art and not paying his consigners, which is almost more of a stealing situation than a fraud situation. But again, it's more of the art fraud that's out there. And if you're buying from a gallery, you want to make sure that they have a clean reputation before you invest heavily into the asset that you're looking at buying. Yeah, we've missed you for a few weeks now. It's glad to see everything's okay. Hope that everything's good out in California for you, Mercedes. But the one that's kind of, it's been an interesting kind of a thing to watch over the last couple of months and years. You know, artwork has become so much more valuable. 30 years ago, the highest price paid at auction was $10.4 million by the J. Paul Getty Museum for Andrea Mantegna's Adoration of the Magi. They spent $10.4 million on it. It was the highest price paid. That's 30 years ago. Just this year, many of you know, if you watch this, the Leonardo da Vinci sold, the Salvator Mundi piece was sold for $450 million. That's a huge increase in the high, and that's 45 times the increase in the highest price paid. It's also, it makes the market strife for corruption. If you can market and sell a piece of art for $450 million, well, there's a lot of reward for that risk. And so there's a lot of people possibly entering that world. And so we want to make sure, what can you do to ensure that you're not exposing yourself to that risk? What can you do to ensure that if you are investing in a piece, that it does have the provenance or the backstory to match the story being represented? And of course, every situation is different. The easiest way to make sure that you've got an original piece of art from an artist is to buy it from a living artist. And we think that's a great idea. My wife and I have bought contemporary pieces because we like them. Not so much because it's an investment for us, but because we like them. Amy, who works for us, is an artist. She represented by the Blue Gallery here in town, has had a couple of really successful shows this year. But you know, if you buy an Amy Absher painting from the Blue Gallery, that Amy Absher painted that painting. If you're buying a piece of art from the Lady Volkus Gallery here in Kansas City by an artist, they're selling you that piece of art because that's what they do. They have a relationship with that artist. And so you can feel really, really confident. I would say 99.9% confident that if the gallery is established and has a clean track record, that and it's an artist that they represent, that you're buying a legitimate piece of art. Where you have more of an issue, more of a concern, is when you're buying in the secondary market. And it doesn't matter if it's from a gallery or an auction house. It happens in all strata. We've had fakes brought to us, really good fakes that have been brought to us that we've had to really do some deep digging. Last year we had what looked like a 7-figure painting brought to us to sell. It had paperwork. On first glance, the paperwork looked right, the painting looked right, the canvas looked right. It wasn't until we really started doing some research that we found out that it was a fraud, and we went back to the consignor and brought that information to them. We had conversations with the FBI and their art fraud department, and hopefully at some point we can talk more about that other than just the abstract that had happened. We can talk about the artist and everything else. But you want to make sure that when you're dealing with an auction house, because that's what we are, you want to make sure that you feel confident that they have done their due diligence. And I brought a piece up here to show that's in our current auction. It's a Robert Greene, who was he taught at the University of Kansas. And it's got a lot of interest. It's a great cubist abstract painting. And its initial down here, very much similar to what we see on his pieces. But what's interesting is, Amy noticed this the other day, that the R and the B are in black ink, and the leg of the R and the G and the period were in brown. And that seemed really odd. That was a really interesting thing to find on a painting. You wouldn't expect it. And so it raised our concerns. We were like, well, it's still a great painting, but is it really a green piece? And so Amy spent quite a bit of time searching online databases and records to find out that he, in fact, did that regularly. In fact, this artist has some pieces that were donated to the Smithsonian and other places. And he, in fact, did that where he would use 2 different colors for his signatures, his initials. Very intriguing. We can't find out why he did that, but it's definitely his work and it's definitely his signature. But it really made us pause and look at it closer. And that's, if you ever are looking at a piece that you have concerns about, you want to make sure that you do take that extra bit of time, do that little bit of extra research. It might be a phone call. It might be spending 20 or 30 minutes researching online, emailing a collector or emailing a dealer or an expert in the situation and the topic and say, what do you think about this? We've had many pieces come in that we just can tell immediately it's not what it's represented because we have a lot of experience in the art world. Thanks for watching, Stacy and Gerald. Yes, everything's good. We have been having so much rain. Us Californians complain we don't have sun. Well, I wouldn't know about that in Kansas City. We get plenty of rain and snow and ice. So we would, I'll take rain and warmth here in Kansas City if we could trade it for some rain. Yvonne Taylor, good morning to you. Thanks for watching. If you all have any questions, please post them here. Send us a direct message. We love to interact with people as we're watching, as we're doing the video. And you hit the like button, the share button with your friends if you think they could be interested in it as well. So one of the other things that I want to bring up is, so this is becoming the numbers are becoming so huge in the art market, especially at the higher ends, that some places are taking what would have seemed like extreme steps to guarantee and to protect themselves from concerns. Sotheby's, they noticed in their annual reporting, in their annual numbers, there was these little blips of basically settlement checks where something would come back. They offer a 5-year guarantee. If a piece turn out to be a fraud, they'll reimburse the money for a 5-year period. Because some pieces just take a long time to research and investigate and find out for sure if it is or is not real. And so they were noticing they were having a lot of settlement checks being sent out to people because they had issues with that. So they went to the unheard of length of actually buying a company called Orion Analytical in December of 2016. Orion Analytical is a company, I think, in Massachusetts. The founder and essentially a sole proprietor of that company is an art expert, and he had invested 30 years in learning about art and learning about the materials available at different times throughout history, the techniques and everything else. He also invested a lot into machinery, whether that's x-ray machines or machines that analyze pigments, analyze canvas, analyze the stretchers. All those things have scientific elements to them that can be analyzed and researched and determined, is this legitimately an 18th century pigment, or is it a 19th century pigment or 20th century pigment made to look like it? And they decided, like I said, Sotheby's decided that it was worth saving their bottom line enough to buy a company and put this in a full-time staff. They're as of the article I read was about 6 or 8 months old on that. As of that time, they were still the only auction house in the world to have their own in-house conservation and analysis company and department. And in 2017, they inspected $100 million worth of artwork that came through their doors. And it didn't say what they found as far as good or bad, but they analyzed $100 million worth of artwork. And so what that's going to do for Sotheby's, you can find legit pieces at flea markets. Absolutely, Mercedes. That's always that's what you hope to find when you go to a flea market, right? You want to find that piece that has been long lost or the family didn't know. That's more apt to happen on lesser known artists who still have value and interest in the marketplace. It's really rare to find, like the Salvador Mundi piece is essentially a flea market find, right? It sold for what, the first time, what, $500,000 10 or 15 years ago at auction as just an old master type painting. And then as this changed hands, it's come up, it sold last year for $450 million. There's a reason it's not being displayed yet. It was bought by a museum in Abu Dhabi. But people, all of us outside that world, that real tight world, are refraining from saying much. There's a lot of articles coming out about concerns. Wow, that was a flood of emotions flying on the screen. There's a lot of concerns about what that piece is, and the over restoration, under restoration, and exactly what that piece is part of the reason why it's not being displayed. But Sotheby's, in their acquisition of that Orion Analytical, what they're doing, and it'll have a long-term positive effect for their company, they are setting themselves up as, they're giving themselves another layer of authority when they do that, right? If they analyzed $100 million of artwork before they brought it to auction last year, as a buyer at that level, I feel much more comfortable and confident that what they are selling is actually what they purport it to be. So over time, that's going to mean that their prices should escalate. I know we started doing similar things with jewelry about 12 to 14 months ago. We started bringing in Tracy Cayley, who is not affiliated with the firm. She's a ISA certified gemologist. She comes in and analyzes all of the jewelry that we have that has precious stones in it. And because of that, the value of all the jewelry that we sell is going up, and the prices realized are higher, because people can say they see that we brought in this third party to analyze it and give us a report on what exactly that diamond is, or what exactly that turquoise is, or what exactly that fill in the blank, precious or semi-precious stone. They know that we're not just saying that from a layman's terminology. I can look at pieces and have a really good idea that, yeah, that's an aquamarine, or that's a topaz, or that's a diamond. But without having that knowledge, those years of experience, there's always that hesitation on a bidder's part. And so Sotheby's is really trying to eliminate those hesitations on the bidder's part. And it's also going to lessen the frequency of fakes offered to Sotheby's to sell. There's another family, I was just reading about it. I didn't have time to take notes because I realized it was 11:46 when I did that. There's a husband and son, father and son team that had perfected the storytelling of antiques, and the son was an expert forger of almost any medium. And so they went for about 20 years before they were caught. And so people like that will not offer to Sotheby's because they know they're going to do the analysis, the technical analysis of the object, to see are those hammer strokes correct on chisel strokes correct on a sculpture? Are the pigments correct for that painting? Is the silver correct in that frame? All those things are going to be able to analyze in a much more in-depth way at Sotheby's than other companies would be able to. For you as a buyer, what does that all mean? It means to trust your source. That's really the biggest thing. And if you don't know your source, buy the piece of art with the intent of enjoying it more than with the intent of investing in it. Art is not created, or hasn't been created historically, as an investment. Artists create art because they feel a passion, desire, and demand of themselves to create artwork. And because of that, some artists are different, but art, generally speaking, is created because the artist feels a passion to create it. As a buyer of art, as a patron of art, you should be buying it with the same intentions. Is it worth $500 to you, $5,000, $500,000, $10 million to you, whatever your price point is, whatever your safe number is? Do you love it enough that if it didn't have the story, didn't have the patronage, would you still enjoy hanging it on the wall and looking at it? That's really, at the end of the day, the most important thing you can do is buy stuff that you really like and enjoy, and learn more and more about it. Investigate the artists that you like. Look at it. If there's showings at museums or galleries, go to those showings and look at the pieces in person. It really makes a big difference. We really strive for our local buyers when we have open houses for our auctions to come down to look at them in person. It really makes a huge difference to see them in person, see the brush strokes, see the scale, see how fine is the line quality in the painting, how fine is the sculpture. All those things really makes a difference when you start to investigate and inspect pieces in person. It really does make a big difference. Yeah, the Rose Bowl Flea Market. That's one place I have never been, and I really need to get out there to, Mercedes. I've been to flea markets all over the country, and that's one I've yet to get to. So that's on my bucket list for sure. Having said all that, it's afternoon already. It's in December, so if you're looking to buy art for presents and gifts for the holidays, that's a great thing to do, especially in the different sources we've talked about. Again, if you have questions, you can always post them here in the video. We check these regularly. You can send us a direct message through Facebook. You can always give us a phone call at 816-283-3633, or you can send us an email at info@kcauctioncompany.com. Again, have a great weekend. Have a great holiday season. Next weekend, I'm going to be talking about how Martha Stewart doesn't matter anymore, and talk about what that means by that and what that means to you as a buyer and style people out there in the marketplace. So thank you all so much for watching. Share with your friends and have a great weekend.